Let's have a toast for the douchebags. Let's have a toast for the assholes. Let's have a toast for the scumbags. Every one of them that I know. Let's have a toast for the jerk offs that'll never take work off. Baby, I got a plan. Run away as fast as you can. This week we're doing Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy from 2010.
Welcome to the Essential Albums podcast, where three guys from 85 have a conversation about some of the biggest albums ever and forgotten favorites from yesteryear. We'll dig into an album's place in culture, discuss its merits, and decide if a record holds up and is worth your time. So join longtime friends Ryan, Anise, and me, Gordon, as we dive into our favorite albums and relive some of the classics. All right, so yeah, big one from Kanye Omari West, his fifth studio album. Who picked this album? Or I think you probably put it kind of in the order, right, Anise?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think I picked it. Let's just say I picked it.
Sure. It was another one of those like quick agreement albums. Like,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So do you recall how we arrived to the decision of picking this album over any other Kanye album to start?
It seems like with an artist who has a lot of kind of big important albums, this one seems the biggest and most importantest.
Right.
That makes sense.
Well put.
Yeah, I think he picked up a lot of new fans with this one.
Yeah, no, it's like I don't know, we'll get into it more a bit later. I think it also marks like a culmination of a lot of stuff that was going on with hip hop leading up to that point and then kind of coming out of it as well.
Yeah. So I guess this is a good, before we, I guess, really dive into the album, I guess this is a good point to ask out. So what's your relationship to Kanye West, Anise? Over all these years?
I'll go first. Because
okay,
I'm sure Anise's relationship is deep.
All right, yeah, okay. Ryan.
They're all deep. It's always deep with me.
Mine's fairly shallow. Actually, it was this album that captured me. Like, I knew Kanye West. I didn't know any of his albums, but I knew just songs here and there. And there were songs I liked, singles I liked. But it wasn't until this album that I really dove deep and started like getting into more of his stuff. And this is the only album really that I've focused on like wholly. Other than that, it's just been like songs. I like collected songs here and there scattered throughout his career. But this is a whole package. And there's so many singles, so many great songs on it. So I hardly need it anymore. But I feel like I'm one of many that jumped on the train in 2010.
Nice. I guess I'll answer quick, I guess, before Anise goes off. No, but
I'm expecting a lot.
How big of a Kanye West fan? I guess because this album is sitting behind me pretty much every week.
I know you've had that prop there for like months. But no, okay. But basically, I followed Kanye since I guess I want to say since 2004. I remember the first time I heard about him was somebody at school telling me that this guy's, you think 50 Cent's crazy, he got shot 9 times. He's like, wait till you hear about this guy who's like his jaw's wired shut and he's rapping.
Origin
story.
He was
in a car accident. So
origin story.
Yeah. And so that's kind of when I first heard about him. So from the college dropout on, I've pretty consistently followed what he's done. Minus, I want to say I kind of fell off a little bit around Life of Pablo. I didn't listen to that album as much when it first dropped in 2006. I have listened to it, I guess, more recently over the years, and it is a solid album. But I just didn't have that immediate attention, or it didn't grab my attention like his previous stuff did. And I guess I might have just kind of been in between music streaming services at the time. But when I did finally pull the trigger on a streaming service around that time, it was the first album I listened to. So overall, I mean, it's hard. He's part of the zeitgeist, so it's hard to not pay attention to anything he's doing. So I like to say that for the most part, I've kind of kept up with what he's been doing.
It's true. You can't like avoid Kanye West if you follow the news at all, because he's gonna stick his head in there. He's gonna start a church or do something crazy like call out the president. So yeah, you're gonna follow.
For me, Kanye West, I was like a very early on to him. I still remember it was my first day at college in 2003. So it was a couple of months before the college dropout even came out. And I went first day of school, knew no one at college. And then I ran into a guy that knew my brother, went to the same high school, driving me home. He's like, "Have you ever heard of Kanye West?" And I was like, "No." It's like, "Oh, you got to check this guy out. He got into a car accident and had to get his wires, his like jaw wired shut." And I remember he put on like Through the Wire, and I can't remember because this would have been like early leaks, so I don't remember if it was like the full album or just that song. And from that moment, I was just like, "This is sick. Like, this is really good." I think I went home and like, I still can't remember if it was a whole album or just certain tracks. I kind of like downloaded it when the album came out. I was like there day one to buy it, and I just remember trying to tell everyone, like, "Have you heard Kanye West? Have you heard Kanye West? Have you heard Kanye West?"
Yeah.
I kind of felt like a broken record. But no, I've listened to him consistently since then. Pretty much seen him live a couple times. I have his shoes over there.
Yeah,
But no, he was like on Spotify last year. He was like my top listened to artist. I listen to Kanye West like all the time. He's one of my number ones.
Can you remember like what it was when you were first listening? You were in a car, right? You were listening.
Yeah. I honestly can't. I don't know. There was just this. I think it was part of that. I think I touched upon it on in the 50 Cent episode. How with 50 Cent and that kind of hip hop was more like gangster rap, and they're talking about the struggle and growing up in like the hood and stuff. Which, as a suburban kid from like Southern Ontario, Canada, I don't really relate. I enjoyed the music and I respected the message and stuff, but I didn't really relate. Whereas when Kanye West was coming up, he was singing about like working at the mall and stuff along those lines. And he dressed like me. He was wearing like polos and a knapsack on his back. He wasn't all like thugged out and stuff. So it was like a different sort of connection there. And he was releasing an album called The College Dropout, and I heard it my first day of college. So, or like that's when I first found out about him. It just seemed like paths were met, and I don't know. I'm like a Kanye West apologist. You can say the most craziest, outlandish shit on online or in TMZ offices or in the Oval Office or on Joe Rogan, wherever the hell he may be, and I'll be still defending him, saying like, "No, you don't understand. What he's trying to say is this and that."
You're just trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sense of it all, but it's part of just being a fan because like you hear his lyrics and what he's been saying for 20 years, and then people want to reduce him to like quotes of just out of context things. And like anyone, they're more than just like one sentence of dialogue. So,
but you probably still wouldn't want him as president, I'm guessing.
No. But I'm also not American, so yeah. I don't know.
You don't get to choose.
Hearing what he had to say on Rogan, he didn't sound so bad. And I remember Chance the Rapper said this on the Joe Budden podcast. They called Chance the Rapper, and he said, "Has Kanye West ever killed anyone? No. Can the other candidates say the same thing?"
Well, I don't know. But yeah, no, that's a low bar. Whatever.
Is it though? that's where the U.S. was a year ago.
Jesus.
Anyways, back to the music. The music, it always hit me different. It always seemed like he was sort of pushing the envelope. And one thing that I've stressed in like countless episodes is always do something, like the artist, like do something different, do something to like challenge your audience, do something, just try to keep pushing music forward. And I feel like Kanye West is someone who's kind of always done that right from the hop. He was sort of stood out. Even his production work leading into it with Jay-Z is pretty iconic, like the Blueprint 2 or whatever, and all that stuff that he was doing. So he seems just like an important figure, and it's just someone I kind of, you kind of latch onto when they first come out. I drafted him early in the draft, and now I'm hoping that he turns out and I outsmarted every other GM. But I really have no skin in the game because I'm the one that's dishing out money to buy his albums and to buy concert tickets.
Well, the concert tickets could be a flop. You don't know how it could work out. But it seems like Kanye West, I don't want to say put an end to gangster rap because it's still kept going, but kind of maybe opened up a new frame, a new window, a new niche for artists. A lot of rappers who like maybe didn't want to, or weren't feeling the gangster rap thing, and I mean a lot of listeners as well, obviously. So
Yeah.
there's a lot more to
Well,
relate to for sure.
like the whole like that whole backpack rap generation of just, and then you had like the echoes of, Lupe Fiasco and Kid Cudi and then Travis Scott and stuff, who kind of are in the same vein as Kanye, and they've worked with him, influenced by him, he influenced them. It's all sort of, it's more collaborative when you start getting into like the nitty gritty of Kanye West and his songwriting, or lack of songwriting.
So yeah, we can I guess get into that, because I think this album we'll talk more about that. I guess we can kick this off. Anise kind of answered this question, but I'll let you officially answer it, Anise. How often is this album in your rotation? This album specifically?
This album specifically, all the time. Like, if I'm doing like a Kanye West deep dive, there's more of an inclination where I dive into this album or this era, like the era of the Good Friday releases, followed by this, and then like the Cruel Summer, Watch the Throne. It seemed like that's when, I don't know, that was the era where it's weird because he was like pretty deep into his like discography at that point, like 5-6 albums deep. But it seemed like that's when he was releasing the most sort of exciting stuff and most that was sort of differentiating and was more sort of divisive, especially by the time you got the Yeezus and stuff from fans. Yeah. So I don't know. This is an era that I usually kind of dive the most back into. I do love like College Dropout and all those first albums too, but it's almost like a different relationship with this era and that era.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it kind of feels like to be honest, I didn't really listen to those first 3 albums this week, just because I wanted to focus more on kind of post that. So it's interesting that you bring that up. But I mean, yeah, those first 3, it's almost like a trilogy. Yeah. I guess it is a trilogy of College Dropout, Late Registration, and Graduation. Those all feel like my college years, like the mid 2000s. So it's from a time. I totally get that.
And also with those 3 albums, were sort of like the universally loved, and then you got the 808s, which was sort of divisive, and then you had this album, which was either loved, and then there was like, I remember there was like that small minority that was sort of didn't like it when it came out, which I understand if you are more of the gangster rap, like Ryan was saying, or the more G-Unit into that sort of thing, how you'd be turned off maybe by this. But then going forward, he probably turned you off even more. But that's what makes him stand out to me, and what probably one of the reasons why I like him is that he does take these left turns and does challenge his audience. And an album like 808 was seen as like a bomb or as a misstep, and it's probably the most imitated album of at least the style on it of like 10-15 years now.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the most influential albums he's released. So I mean, overall, like I don't know if I do playlists. Usually when I do Kanye, I like to just kind of throw on an album and run with it. So I mean, and his stuff's always on the radio. Like it's just in the mainstream, so it's hard. Yeah. You get both angles of it, of where you're a loyal fan, you do want to listen to it every so often, but at the same time, you can just turn on the radio and you're going to hear something. How about you, Ryan? How often is Kanye in your rotation?
Yeah, this album doesn't even, maybe it's a sign of getting old. It doesn't even feel that old to me. It feels pretty fresh. I don't know, like as a full album comes up once every few years, but like the songs come up all the time. Yeah, I mean, almost to the point of overplaying. We'll talk about that maybe sometime. But yeah, little bits of it will just come up all the time.
Because even like, since I knew this episode was coming up and I was watching like a lot of hockey because it's the playoffs, and pretty much every game you watch, or like for Leaf games, they play Power whenever they have a power play. Like it's always just sort of in the zeitgeist. Like there's always Kanye West songs happening.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, it's funny. You said the other day, I'm like, I was just watching the Leafs game and I heard that song. So I guess, you're right. It's every time the power play goes on. So yeah, it's there. So I guess this can open us up to more song-specific questions. There were technically 4 singles from this album. They were Power, Runaway, Monster, and All of the Lights. I didn't even realize Monster was a single. It was just such a bomb song. So I remember like just being amongst friends and always hearing that song. So it was almost like it was a single. But yeah, technically it was officially a single.
That's what I heard first, actually. Actually, the first thing I heard on this album, we were in your car, Gordon, and you're like, check out this verse. And you put on Nicki Minaj's verse.
I think I was also in that car.
Could have been. I was just like blown away. I was blown away by how like all the different tones she goes through in that verse, and all the the different aggression, and obviously how clever it is. Like that's to date probably the best thing I've ever heard Nicki Minaj do. Uh, that's just like such a sweet. I can't. Yeah, I was almost gonna start the lyric with Nicki Minaj, but I didn't. I didn't want to. Like, it's Kanye West's album. Maybe I should do him.
So yeah, I guess some little trivia. I'll just kick it off by saying this is kind of still probably my favorite song from the album. I was debating. There's like so many, so I settled on this one. And then I guess a little bit of trivia behind it that I read before doing this is he almost left this track. Kanye West almost left this track off because he gets outshined by Nicki Minaj.
Oh, that would have been it.
That would have been it. So I mean, it did before this. I didn't really know who Nicki Minaj was, or like I wasn't really fully aware of her rapping. I did hear a remix of Lollipop, and she caught my attention because she was able to rhyme pussy fart with Melissa Joan Hart. So I was like, okay, that's pretty good. So I remember hearing that, but I didn't really hear much. And then it seemed like this song came out, and then all like I forgot her Pink album or that album like around the same time came out. So it was all of a sudden Nicki Minaj was everywhere from that point on. So yeah, definitely, she totally outshines I guess both of them on this track.
Definitely. But I would say that Kanye West definitely kicks Jay-Z's verse out.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Jay-Z's verse always sounded like, really, Jay-Z? This like goblins and vampires and bloodsuckers? I don't know. It never really hit with me. But I never knew if it was like the juxtaposition of how good Nicki's was compared to him, or if it was just like a bad verse.
No,
because like on the next track, he sounds better immediately.
It's true. No, you know what I think it is? Well, it's definitely Kanye West's verse is pretty good. It's good verse. It's a good verse. And then Jay-Z's kind of like, okay, that wasn't as good. And then Nicki Minaj is amazing. But the thing, I listened to it carefully. Jay-Z's verse, like just listen to it again. At the end of the verse, like you can't even hear the last syllable. It's covered up by the track. It's almost like he's just like given up. It's like a really lazy end. There's no climax. There's no like, bam, we're back into the chorus like the other two verses. It's just kind of like, and I'm out of ideas.
I was actually wondering today, because when you read about a lot of the featured artists that were on this, like when Pusha T wrote for like Runaway, how he wrote a verse, scrapped it, and like rewrote it because he like realized like how big of a deal this album and that song was and stuff. Yeah. I wonder if possibly like how early on that feature on Monster was recorded, because if maybe it was recorded earlier on before people realized what was happening, and you don't really throw away a Jay-Z verse. Because even when you read about like Nicki Minaj, I was trying to find this article, but there was this really good article about pretty much the whole recording of this album. There was like a page for every song, kind of like Wikipedia, but it was a more in-depth, showing like interviews with the artists, like had quotes and stuff. And talking to Nicki Minaj for this song, she was talking about how, I think I've told you guys both the story before, but how she would kind of write her verse and go like show it to Kanye, and Kanye wouldn't even like look up at her. He'd just keep his eyes looked at his computer, which was showing porn. So he wouldn't look away from the porn on the screen, and Nicki would be saying her line, and he'd just be like, no, that's not it. Go back and write it again.
Oh my God.
And she was just like, what the fuck's going on? Which like led to this. And like, I don't know, like when you, like her lyrics on the song are just, they're so different because they're braggadocious in a way that Kanye's braggadocious. It isn't just like, I got the best pussy and all that stuff. It's like, I've sold this many records and I'm new and I charge this much for a feature. And like, she's just stating facts as opposed to like bullshit bravado.
But at the same time, she does a great job of taking, I think what Jay-Z wanted to do was give the creepy monster feel with the bloodsuckers, but she took it like way up here to the next level where you're actually kind of scared of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing that's interesting about the Jay-Z verse is it's the shortest. Like you have like an incredible lead-in to the song, starting with what's his name, Justin Vernon, Justin Vernon from Vernon, and then you got Rick Ross in there who spits something pretty much just talking about how Kanye West samples are the best, even though there's no samples on this track. And then you have Kanye giving a good solid verse to kick it off, and then Jay-Z's is like a very so-so or mediocre kind of verse, and then you got Nicki Minaj who just lights the track on fire. So I wonder if it was something where it was like, okay, we'll put Nicki Minaj first, then we'll put Jay-Z, and then we'll put Kanye, and then after in post, they're probably just like, we can't do that. it has to be this way.
It kind of reminds me of reading about or just listening to them, the Wu-Tang guys talk about their songs, because RZA would always say, and RZA, who has production credits all over this album, so it makes me wonder again. What RZA would do a lot of times was he would get Inspect the Deck in first to drop his verse because he knew that he would like raise the bar for everyone else. So all the other guys would be like, "Oh shit, I gotta like put more effort into my verse or whatever, just into my lyrics." I wonder if there's some of that going on in here as well.
Man, that's the Duke Ellington approach to band management, or getting the best out of your artists. You just kind of, you're gonna manipulate the situation, but make it good for them. Make them want to do good, as opposed to just hiring these guys, and if they fail, you fire them right away and just keep hiring and firing, then with a huge turnover. That's the James Brown approach. So.
Well, just like the whole recording process of this, I'm sure Gordon probably has a lot of more facts than I do, but they were I know that they went to Hawaii and they were just sort of secluded, and there was a whole group of them, like Kid Cudi, Pusha T, RZA, Kanye, like Nicki Minaj would come in, Justin Vernon, like different artists were just constantly coming in and off the island, like Swizz Beatz. And everyone was just sort of in different rooms writing different songs, different parts of songs. And Kanye West was just sort of traveling from room to room, working with everyone, seeing where they were at. And they had like a schedule. They'd all eat breakfast together. They'd play basketball. They would go to church on Sunday. Like, I think they were off on Sunday too, possibly. I can't remember now. But I remember he had like rules and everyone sort of followed them and they were always constantly working. It just sounds like a really cool environment that you see why it led to the Good Fridays, this album, and then I believe some of the Cruel Summer stuff was even from these sessions. So it's kind of interesting to hear all the music that came out of all these different artists working together. Because you'll listen to a song and there'll be like one line where, like All the Lights, it's just like one line that Drake harmonizes with Rihanna. It's like, really? Drake was there for one line?
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
And then you get to the end of the song and it's like, now you have Elton John here? Like, what the hell?
Alicia Keys too, right?
Alicia Keys, yeah.
Yeah, they show up for one line.
Yeah, like you have Rihanna on the song, not credited. Drake pops in for a line, not credited. And then there's also Elton John and Alicia Keys on the song, uncredited. It's like, what's going?
Yeah, I tried to show somebody how many people were in this album, so I'm like, oh, check out the credits. I'm like, what the fuck? Where is everybody? They're not on this. Like,
yeah,
there's so many people that are just not credited. I guess one line doesn't count, or maybe Kanye West is trying to avoid having to pay royalties to everybody.
I don't know. I know a lot of artists, they like to leave off features, so when you're listening to the album, it kind of pops. Even some artists, they don't, when the album first gets released, they won't put the features on, and then maybe a week later they'll put them on the Spotify or Google Play or whatever.
So when you're listening along, you're like, oh, I didn't know that guy was on the album.
I remember when Travis Scott's Astro World came out, it was like that. When Sicko Mode comes on and it's just Drake instantly, it's like, oh my god, fucking Drake is on this.
That's cool. But when Elton John came in, I had no idea it was Elton John. I had to like figure that out. Yeah. Alicia Keys is pretty recognizable, but Elton John's probably just getting old.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys are talking about All of the Lights specifically. Yeah, apparently there's like 11 different people like that have vocal tracks on that song, which to me, when I hear it, I'm just like, okay, yeah, you got Kanye, and then you have Rihanna, and then there's some guy that kind of does backing vocals at one point. Maybe that's Kid Cudi, and then that's all I hear. And then I just assume Elton John was on the keys.
Yeah, then you have like what Ryan was saying, because they just come in at the end. Alicia Keys and Elton John just sort of.
Yeah, you know the ooh, whoa, whoa, that part I sang with the tune. Yeah, that part. That's just Alicia Keys doing ooh, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah,
you need to come to Hawaii right now.
Well, because also Swizz Beatz worked on a song, and that's her husband. So I wonder if they were there together, and then she just jumped on a track as well. So
could have been it. Yeah, sounds like a party. Like recording this sounds like a huge party. Like, well, more like a summer camp. Sounds like a.
Yeah, because it kind of goes back to what we're talking about in the Daft Punk episode, in that era in LA, where all these guys, which is pretty much this group of people, but also with like all the electro guys like Daft Punk, Steve Aoki, and all those guys, they were pretty much doing the same thing, but in LA at the time too. So it was almost like it bled from there. He got exiled after the Taylor Swift incident, and he took the band to Hawaii.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so pretty much, yeah. I guess he had a rough 2009, so he just wanted to escape everything. So basically, he for the recording studio, he block booked all three session rooms for 24 hours for the duration of the recording. The recording costs over $3 million to do,
Wait,
and
what did
yeah,
he do? He booked what?
so for like a recording, like the whole studio, they had three session rooms. He block booked all three for the duration of the recording.
So nobody else could record, and he didn't necessarily need. Okay, that makes sense.
So,
So that would be
so
expensive.
the way he was working was he would like he'd have like three different songs going, one in each room, and then he would just like work in one room, and then once he kind of hit his wall, then he would piece out and go to another room to kind of focus on a different song. He didn't really sleep much during the duration of the recording for this. He slept in like 90-minute naps, pretty much, or power naps when he was tired. And yeah, like you said, in East, he had two private chefs, one for hot food, one for cold food, and he always served breakfast in the morning or at like his residence, and then they would go and attack the day of recording. So yeah, it seemed like it was very collaborative. There's multiple producers on this. I think there's only one track where Kanye West didn't include the production or wasn't included, like didn't get a producer's credit. But yeah, he's like all over this. It's the one with, I got the track here. It is
Because that's
Devil in a New Dress.
Devil in a New Dress, yeah.
It's funny because it sounds like something like that track, that beat sounds like something from like College Dropout or Late Registration, but it's not him.
It's funny because that's one of the beats that gets used all the time by rappers and freestyles and stuff. It's funny that Kanye West doesn't even have any credit on it.
Right. So I mean and I think based on everything I read, a lot of the collaboration or a lot of this process was through collaboration. So he would pitch something, and then he would ask for everybody like for their input, and then he would take all their suggestions and then tweak it. So it was very collaborative. Yeah. And then there were some leaks. There's a funny Pusha T quote where he was. Let me see here. Yeah, so basically Pusha T called. He was like freaking out about no leaks, no cell phones, nothing like that. He tried to keep it as secretive as possible. And then one day, once there were leaks, Kanye was like ranting and raving. He's like, "Fuck this! I'm never going to do work there again. We're going to record everything in hotel rooms." And then apparently everything that he did going forward, like for Watch the Throne, was all recorded in hotel rooms. So he's adapted since then. I don't know how leaks.
How is a hotel room more secure than a recording studio? I guess you just can't trust whoever owns the place.
I guess just for like the mobility, you can just set up shop real quick, do something, and then be on your way. I don't know. But yeah, that's so I thought that was a funny fact. But yeah, I guess we can ask, what's your favorite track, Ryan, off this album?
Wait, did we settle on Monster being the biggest track? Because I don't even think that's close.
Oh no, I started with favorite. I kicked it
off. I thought you said biggest.
Okay.
Oh no, yeah, I don't think that's the biggest one.
Yeah, because Monster's your favorite.
I'm just flipping up the order.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah,
Monster's your favorite. I'm gonna have to say All the Lights. I don't know. That's just such an epic, like, so many people in it, and every time with the piano intro and the whole thing is such an epic. I know you could argue Runaway is an epic too, but I don't know. The drums are really cool too and really busy. It's just there's a whole bunch of reasons. What else is great about it? Rihanna's good. The video's good.
I like the beat is just so bombastic. Like it's just.
Yeah, it's got all these extra notes and stuff. It's a fun one to play along with. Like I remember when this album came out, I'd have parties at the house and stuff, and people would just start like jamming along with tracks, and this would be one of the ones that would come up, and it was like so fun to play drums along with because it's really busy.
Yeah. No, I agree with it. It seems like there's a lot of layers to it, like a lot of not only percussion, but just like there's so many different sounds in it.
Even just the lead in, like all of the lights, like the intro with the cello and everything.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
And
good lead in.
The horn part always gets stuck in my head. I was doing that like for a whole week. Yeah, that's so hooky, and it's just the horn. So
yeah, it's pretty good.
Good work, guys.
Can I cheat and pick a whole section of an album?
No, you can't do that. You cannot. We're talking single tracks. You cannot do that. I had to pick a single track.
All right, we'll have
It's
to pick
easy
one.
to pick the section. We know what section you're talking about. So just pick a song.
What do you know? How do you bet you have no idea what section I'm talking
All
about?
right, fine. What section are you talking about?
I was going to talk about "Devil in a New Dress" to "Hell of a Life." That 3-song roll there.
Okay. All right.
Because honestly, for me, it was between "Devil in a New Dress" and "Runaway." Because "Runaway," I think like that song and video and everything is almost like like if you were to play hip hop to someone 20 years prior, and then played them that song and video, you'd be like, this is not even the same thing. Like it's just evolved so much. It got to a point that it's like almost unrecognizable, but could not be more of what hip hop and rap is supposed to be. But I love playing "Devil in the New Dress" and just cruising around in my song, pretending I'm Rick Ross.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just I love like the whole like the bluesiness with the bass line, and everything about that song is great. Just like that little hook. Like I learned a lot from Satan, and I don't know. I just love everything about that song. Mm-hmm. Great guitar solo.
It's funny that you mentioned the like kind of like sections of the album, and I was thinking about it too. I'm like, can this album be broken down into sections? And it's funny that you kind of said that, because like I think of it, if I were to break it down in sections, I'd probably go like the first 5 tracks, like up until All the Lights, and then you have kind of like Monster, So Appalled. Those are kind of like on their own in the middle, and then the three track section that you mentioned, and then it kind of closes out with the Blame Game, Toxic Relationship, and then Will You Survive in America?
Because for me, like that "Devil in a New Dress," it's like that whole beat. I always call that like that whole Rick Ross. Like everything just sounds expensive about it. I don't know what it is. It's just you should be driving in a Maybach and wearing a Rolex while listening to that song. And then you get to like "Runaway," which is like something a rich person would play at a party, like the whole piano and like how it's all soft and everything. And then "Hell of a Life" is like the trashiest song. And there's also a great video from when we did a road trip. It was me, Gordon, and a couple other friends, but our one buddy Vince, who doesn't really get drunk very often. He's hammered in Gordon's passenger seat, and he's just rocking out "Hell of a Life." It's one of my favorite videos that exists online.
It's a good video. Is it on YouTube? Is that video on YouTube?
No, it's on Facebook.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll have to link it or something.
I was saying you have to link it in this video. But yeah, I'd have to go with "A Devil in a New Dress." Great song.
Right. Do you think that song? Just a random question. Do you think that song kind of marks like a change in the album, like in the tone, like it kind of shifts? Like you have like the big features at the beginning, like the bravado, all that stuff, and then it kind of turns more into like more inward on Kanye, where it's like about like his past relationships, struggling with all of that stuff. Like it seems like there's almost not a noticeable shift, but it seems like at least lyrically maybe there's a bit of a shift.
Yeah, a little bit.
Am I the only one that's seeing that?
I didn't catch it.
Yeah, I didn't catch it as well, because for me, like every song is it's almost so meta and introspective with Kanye. It's like he's rapping all bravado, but he also makes references to like him as an artist. I don't know. It's just the way he writes. It's different from a lot of other people. And that's what I was saying with Monster. Like Nicki Minaj was able to capture that sort of same tone that Kanye West that usually is able to hit, which is, I don't know. It's more. I've always found his lyrics more vulnerable when he's kind of rapping about himself, as opposed like you will have a song like "Power" where he's talking about how he's like a god, but then you'll also have a song where he's, "Runaway," where he's a douchebag and he's an asshole and all this stuff. Like he's very self-aware of what he is. Yeah,
like even in "Power," 21st century schizoid man. Who is he talking about? Like he knows his thoughts are like going a mile a minute, you know. So
also the song that's sampled is called 21st Century Schizoid.
Yes. Is that King Crimson? Is that what
yeah.
Yeah, he's got a vulnerable side to him that a lot of like gangster rap guys just won't even show at all, or when they do show it, it's like only in a sexual context or something.
Like when we were talking about with 21 Questions with 50 Cent, it was a good change up to hear someone so vulnerable on a song like that. Whereas with Kanye West, that's something he does all the time. Like he'll have a song where he's rapping about he's the best and he drives Lamborghinis or whatever, but he'll also have a song about how
or in the same song. It's
Yeah, or in
you,
the same
you
song.
can hear like
Yeah.
a struggle sometimes, like
Yeah.
there's like a little bit of self doubt, or he'll bounce around just like his brain is probably bouncing around.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too because since he does, I don't know how much you want to get into this, since he does work with like ghostwriters and stuff, like I still do think it's like very much his vision of like what the song is about and everything from what I read, like when he talks to people, like even for getting Pusha T on Runaway, he talked with him with what his point of view was with the whole situation he was singing about and with the context of the lyrics, and he got his point of view first, and he said, "You want to jump on the track? Like I like your angle on this."
Hmm.
It's kind of a different way other than being like, hey, give me 12 bar, like give me 8 bars or give me 12 bars. He actually like wanted to make sure that you were on board with what message he was trying to get across, which I assume when he's working with Sci-Hi and all the other people he works with, he's probably doing the same thing, and like he's very clear cut what he's trying to get across. So it's kind of interesting because I know these guys nowadays, they talk about using ghostwriters. I just want to, I still feel like they're probably still doing the majority of the heavy lifting. I just would want to see like what that process is like.
Definitely.
Because like we grew up in the 90s where it's all like you got to be authentic, you got to be real, you got to write your own stuff, you got to be you.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays it's sort of like, well, if it's collaborative like this and it's a person's vision, does it really matter? Like you're still getting a great song at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the 90s there was a whole thing of people pretending that they were doing all the stuff, but in the background there was like a producer, a studio shining it all up or making it.
I wonder if we're gonna go. I wonder if we're gonna go back to that because the '90s was sort of like a reaction to like the hair metal of the '80s and like that glam metal in the '80s. So I wonder if we'll get a reaction to this whole because nowadays all the artists are like selling shoes, selling McDonald's meals, selling everything that they could possibly sell. It's like a merchandising machine. I wonder if we're gonna get back to a time where it's gonna be more about I want an authentic artist who's writing all their songs, who's performing all their songs.
Sure.
Because you get the cycles, right?
But how is this artist going to get paid then? They just
I
have
don't
to. They just have to tour endlessly. They have to
Yeah,
constantly
well,
be playing.
you're still going to be a songwriter. You're going to get, like, if you're one songwriter as opposed to five, you're going to get more of the split.
That's true, but no one's going to hear it if it's not in the McDonald's commercial. So
True. Yeah, if you're looking at it from that angle, true.
Yeah, it kind of strikes like Tyler Creator kind of strikes me as somebody that was like that. I know he's been out for a long time now, and I don't know what he sells. I haven't really kept up with him, but
yeah,
he's like somebody that was like that.
His newest song is literally for Coke.
Okay, so
right.
Yeah, I'm probably like 5 years removed from having a Tyler Creator album. So I don't know.
It is like a really good song, and his last album was amazing. I think it's one of the best albums of the past 5 years. But his last song was for Coca-Cola.
That always. I mean, being a '90s kid, that always struck me as odd. Like just pull out. It seems like just pull out selling out. Like you're doing it. But yeah, to each their own. Hey, he's probably making a ton.
Well, there's like the Jay-Z line. It's, what is it? Would you rather be a rich sellout or a poor? I forget the exact line, but it was just sort of like, just because you're making money doesn't make you a sellout. If you're a songwriter, someone pays you to write a song, are you a sellout? That's your job.
I guess, but think about it this way. Imagine it was Kurt Cobain who wrote a song about Coke, and it was just like, yeah, Coke's great. Like, what would you think about
But
that?
that's not what the song is. The song
Okay.
isn't like Coke is great. It's just a
is
song. It's a song, but it's in a Coke commercial.
Okay, he just wrote it. He licensed
Like,
it, but it's not about Coca-Cola. It's not a jingle.
But it's made for the ad. It's kind of like Pusha T was the one who wrote "I'm Loving It." So is Pusha T a sellout for writing "I'm Loving It"?
No, he did it. He did.
Absolutely.
He's not claiming that as his art. That's for sure. Probably
No,
not.
you get into this weird thing because that's always happened. Like back in the day, like wasn't Luther Vandross wrote like a ton of jingles?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't have anything against jingles and stuff. What I don't like a little bit is that I think a lot of artists are forced to go down the route of like, doing the commercials or doing those kinds of spots because they're simply like, I would prefer if artists got paid off of just like their art. So that was like, if you really like their art, they get more money and they might do more art.
But to bring this all back to like Kanye West, I think the biggest difference is back in the day when like an artist was working for like a label, I mean for like a brand or something, it felt more as if the brand was in charge. Whereas nowadays, like with Kanye West with this album, even though he's working with other writers and stuff, it very much feels like he is in charge. Whereas it's the same deal with Tyler the Creator. He made that song for Coke, but it seemed like he was very much in charge of what the song was. He made the song and presented it to them as opposed to them being like, we want you to do this with this line. This has to be the slogan, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No, you're totally right. Musicians these days are seen as like independent, like they're doing their own thing, and if they're in a commercial, it's because they made a deal as a business. It's not like their record label, hey, you got an appointment with McDonald's at 12. It's not that sort of thing.
Yeah, because back in the, like, I know we're kind of getting a little off topic, but back in the day, there would be more 360 deals with labels, where 360 means the label gets a cut of everything you do. Yeah. Whereas nowadays, a lot of artists are getting smart and straying away from that. So now they're being able to control what labels they work with and what they actually provide for the label.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kanye West, like, I mean, at this point was definitely seen as an independent. I mean, it seems like he took the reins of this whole thing. So
yeah,
it seems like he's the one in charge. Nobody's like telling him what to do.
Yeah. And again, like, I can't even think of any of his songs ever being used in anything. All of his labels are kind of his own. Like, he did his deal with Nike, he did his deal with Adidas, he has his clothing line. It seems like it's all just his own stuff. Yeah. He's his own label.
Yeah. So I guess, we can jump off that. That was a good tangent. We can, I guess, get back into some song questions. We'll go in the original order that we always do. What do you think is the biggest song on this album, Denise?
I was kind of bouncing between Runaway and Power, because Power seems the one that's kind of stuck around, the one you hear at sporting events, the one you're more likely to hear on the radio still.
I'm pretty sure I've heard it in commercials. I've heard it in commercials somewhere.
Probably. Whereas Runaway is more of, he performed it everywhere at the time. It seemed like every award show, every late night talk show, he was performing Runaway. It had the big like short film video. It seemed like those were both sort of neck and neck. Maybe the time has been more friendly to Power, just because it's more like a bombastic song you can play at the gym. You can throw it on a playlist at a party and stuff. So I'd have to go with Power. But both of those songs are probably equally huge, along with half this album.
Yes, there's a lot of big stuff on this album. But you know what I think Runaway, one of the things that makes Runaway really special is I think maybe, would you say it's, if not the best up until that point, one of the best like songs where Kanye's actually singing? Like, he's singing a lot through it, and he's actually like in that chorus, it actually is like really soulful, and it doesn't sound like he's using auto-tune, or if he is, it's dialed down. You know, it's not meant to be like that. So, and it sounds really good. He sounds like he's a singer. I think that's part of what makes Runaway special. It makes it
the notes. Yeah, that was the same thing I said. Like, he's singing is one of the things that stood out to me as well.
Yeah. I remember when I first heard that song, I was like, what is this? It seems like almost corny, and I'm like, the lyrics are like hip hop, and like when he's kind of going off, I'm like, the first time I heard it, I'm like, what do I make of this? And then the more I heard it, the more I listened to it, the more I really warmed up to it. And even though it's like a 9-minute track, I still find myself like, I never really skip it. It's like the way it worked, like the first 5 minutes you got the single, but then it veers off, and like I'm into the whole thing.
I listen to the whole thing every single time too.
Yeah. Even that ending with like the cello and like the distorted vocals and stuff, I just like, I'm driving and I just personally get introspective while that part is playing.
Is that
like
is that vocal part Kanye West soloing with like a vocoder? Is that him playing the notes?
I think so, because he also, like, there's random lines in there from the song. Like,
you hear him saying the words, so it sounds like a vocoder thing where he's got the, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's cool shit.
Yeah. So I guess going back to the original question, I do think Power is probably the number one. When I check Spotify, interesting point. But when I checked Spotify, it was number one from this album for listens. But interesting point, a random point that I did notice is, he's one of the few artists that we've talked about where it seems like he's got like the top 10 that he has on Spotify, And I think there's like, it's over 9 different albums. Like all the other artists we talked about, it's usually more like you got one album that's got like 2 or 3 tracks on it, or like it's not that kind of a spread. But the crazy thing with Kanye is like he's got stuff everywhere. So it's like, yeah, that's pretty impressive feat.
Yeah, because even like an album like Ye, which a lot of people talk down about, has Ghost Town, which is like one of his most streamed songs.
Yeah.
So even his quote unquote unpopular, quote unquote bad album is still generating one of his most popular songs.
Yeah, and it'll find an audience somewhere, because I've noticed a lot, like just watching TikToks and stuff like that, you'll find like it's like, oh, Wolves, like nobody plays this song, but like it's always, you see it on a lot of TikToks, like just like the beginning of that song. So I mean, he's always able to find an audience, no matter how badly his stock's taking a hit. Okay, so I guess the next question we can ask is, what do you think is the most overplayed song, if there is one from this album?
Well, when this album came out, it seemed like everything was just being played all the time, and Power did have like that long stretch because it came out like a good 6 months before the album, so it got a lot of play leading in. But you also had the Good Fridays in there, so it kind of broke it up. But something my brother pointed out to me, he said he was saying "Runaway" just because it was performed everywhere at the time.
And
like
I heard it on the radio all the time.
Yeah.
And the because did they recreate the video live at some point? I feel like there was a performance.
Maybe. I think he did like a big performance at the Grammys, I believe.
Well, he debuted the song at the MTV Awards.
Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's for like 09, or maybe it was, yeah, I think it was like for 09.
I remember when
he debuted it. Yeah.
I remember on the Yeezus tour, he at the beginning he hit like the wrong piano note.
You got one note. No, I mean there's a few, but still, they're really spaced out.
They started over.
Like, it's like, oh,
oh yeah, because he's playing along with tracks, right? So it's like, no, we can't start like that. I would have just chromatically walked up to the next one and pretend it was all part of the deal. That's my.
I did hear. I did say 2009 earlier. I meant 2010 for Runaway, because that's when this album came out. But I did hear somewhere, I don't know if this is true or not, but he was heavily influenced by Eyes Wide Shut, like the Stanley Kubrick movie. So that's where this song is influenced from that score.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it seems interesting. It seems true.
Yeah.
One more thing about Runaway. Okay, how do you guys feel about when you're hearing the piano? This is like kind of a music nerd question. When the drums come in, do you feel a switch, like it's off for a second, or have you heard it enough times now that you are expecting exactly what drops?
The first times I heard it, it was like off, and even after, if I don't listen to it for a while, you kind of get that same sensation. But no, it seems right. But I know what you mean. It's like
yeah, like in the offbeat or something, right?
Yeah. You're on the 2 and the 2 and 4 the whole time, but because there's nothing but just the piano, your mind automatically assumes that's 1 and 3, because that's just the strong.
Well, it's like that video that Kyle sent us with that Ludacris song. Different people's backgrounds count it differently.
Yeah. No, it kind of does create an interesting effect where that piano intro is what? It's got to be close to 30 seconds, and you're like, okay, what's going to happen here? Like, this is the slowest thing. I don't know what's going to happen. And all of a sudden, like, the drums kick in at a weird spot. You're like, okay, whoa, wait, okay, what's going on?
And they usually keep that piano intro in on the radio too. I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't think they ever just like jump to the drums coming in. So it's kind of for everything that happens on the radio, with all of like the compression and the arms race to get your songs as loud as possible. When it cuts down to just like a slow piano note, that's going to stand out. That's really going to stand out. So no wonder it was on the radio all the time. No wonder it did so well. I mean, that's one of the reasons. It really grips you. The minimalist aspect really grips you at the beginning.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. What did you say was overplayed, Ryan? Did you say Runaway?
Runaway, yeah. So that's what I thought was going to be.
Yeah. For me, I had all of the lights, just because I remember the way it came out. Like you had the first 2 tracks, like you had Power and Runaway, being massive songs at the end of 2010. And then it seemed like after a certain point, everything, like after it seemed like a while, everything just kind of shifted. And then All of the Lights was the only thing that I was hearing from this album for all of 2011. But there was like a shift where I eventually kind of just got tired of that song a little bit. Now when I listen to it on headphones, it's great because I mean I've been removed from it from enough. But I remember just thinking back, I remember that song being an overplay.
It had a really cool video too. That's probably why, with like Kanye on the cop car and the alley.
Oh yeah, with the lights.
Yeah.
And the Rihanna.
And then he like did the gas. Was that the one where he did the Gaspar Noah stuff? Like the
might have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's true. I remember.
What was that movie called? That French movie. What was that called again? Into the Void.
Into the Void.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got lots of fucked up movies. So yeah, that's what I have for overplayed. Favorite track we've already done. So what do you think is the most underrated track on this album, Ryan? I'll let you start this one off.
I think, my original answer was Monster, but I didn't realize Monster was a single. But
and it's like that Nicki Minaj line is mentioned like constantly. So
yeah. So I mean, but I don't remember it getting played. Like I don't remember hearing Monster on the radio.
It's probably just because it's like too explicit, I guess.
Yeah, it's more like a video kind of. So my impression of it was like it didn't get on the radio, but Runaway.
And it's a pretty long song too, right?
Power did.
Yeah, it's over 6 minutes long. Like it's a pretty long song. I guess you could cut a minute out of it, like cut the end off.
I guess critical reception, if you're counting that, everybody I know loves that verse. So what could be underrated? I was
kind of looking at it today. I was saying "Hell of a Night" because even when I was looking through, it was one of them. It's one of the least like played on like YouTube. It was like one of the least looked up on Genius. So I'm like, I wonder if like people just don't like this song, even though it seems like one of the more bangers on this album, where it's just like a straight up just party song.
Yeah, that beat is really grinding. I think that could, and the hook in the chorus is really good too. So
yeah.
Why didn't that do better? That's a good question.
Yeah, like I understand it can't be a radio single because of what he's saying in the chorus, but it seems like a song that they'd be blasting in the club. Yet, when I was looking it up, like even on Genius, it was all the other songs were over 1 million like lookups, whereas that song wasn't even half that. So I'm like, do people not care about the song?
Well,
people don't care about the lyrics, I guess maybe.
Another thing about it, like if it can't get played on the radio because it's too explicit or whatever. If the club is the other place for it to be, I mean, it's not exactly a club tempo kind of track. It's like a mid tempo. It's not a slow jam, and it's not a, So I don't know. It's not like 135 or something like that. So where do you hear the song? On the album, it's a great place. It has a great place on the album because it like just kind of chills out.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of people think of like Amber Rose when they think of that song? Because I think that song's like more or less
pretty blatantly about her.
Yeah. So do you think a lot of people just are just turned off by that song because of the way that relationship turned out?
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm just guessing.
I have no idea. I didn't know.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great song. For me, the song I had that was underrated, I put Gorgeous. It's just the beat is probably one of my favorite beats on this album, the guitar riff, the way it's always constantly changing. And I guess like Raekwon doesn't really do many features. So for him to be on this track, he's got sick rhymes. Like all the verses on this track are solid.
Yeah.
So I really like that one. And I think it's a popular track, but it doesn't seem to be talked about enough. So that's why I threw it underrated.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a straight up almost rock song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This song is built.
Lost in the World is really nice too. Like
at the end.
Yeah, I think that Bon Iver's contribution kind of gets left out of all. We haven't even talked about him yet. I don't think he came up.
Oh, we mentioned him.
Did we?
Justin Vernon. That's who he is.
No, right. Yeah.
Justin.
No, that's not.
Yeah, no, like that because that song "Lost in the World" is pretty much like a sampled Bon Iver song from his Blood Bank EP. So when I first heard that, it was like recognizable, and then it kind of bleeds into that, like the last track with Gil Scott Heron, his whole like rant. So yeah, it's a really good ending to this album. Like those two, and even like the Blame Game leading into that, like those last 3 songs going back to Sections. Those last 3 songs play really well together that it almost like could be like one track, like the way Lost in the World kicks in after Blame Game it kind of fits where his
Yeah.
like Justin Gordon's like vocoder voice comes in.
And they've got you in this. They've got you in that zone right now. The feeling, the blame game, totally feels right going into Lost in the World. They don't
Yeah.
take that. I think it's good that they don't take you out, or Kanye West doesn't take us out with it like a banger at the end or something like that.
Because you go from Blame Game with like it's pretty much like a John Legend song with Kanye on it, and then you get the Chris Rock telling the story about overhearing stuff.
Which is
And then
pretty
you get
ballsy.
yeah, then you get the Boney Bear with the tribal drums and everything that sounds cool, and then takes you in. It's almost like not even about him. It's just about ending the album. You know, it's not like Kanye West. Like he has like the big lines and Lost in the World and stuff like that whole verse. But yeah. And Blame Game, the lyrics were like an email he wrote to was that the one? One of the songs like an email he wrote to Kim Kardashian.
Oh,
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
I forget which one. I'm like blanking now, but it'll come to me.
So do you?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just curious how that Chris Rock skit thing happened. Like, how did that get recorded? How was that, is it pre-written?
Well, first I'll say I was right. Lost in the World. Those lyrics were an email he sent to Kim Kardashian. The "You're my devil, you're my angel, you're my heaven." But Chris Rock, I think I read that it was a conversation that Kanye West overheard someone having on a phone. So then he like got Chris Rock to read it. I could be wrong though, but I think that's what I read. I don't know. Did you read anything different, Gordon?
Yeah, no, I didn't look. I didn't look too close into it this week, but I did hear. I think when the album originally came out, that Chris Rock like recorded those parts himself. It's not like sampled from anything. Like he came to the studio and recorded it.
Yeah, it sounds like it kind of just like sounded like he was riffing on an idea. But what I wanted to know was like, is the girl's voice like, was she there actually answering him and they were playing off each other, or is it just like a sample? But it sounds different.
I'll read the quote that Chris Rock said for the New York Times about the song. I did that quicker than I read scripts that they offer me money to do. I thank Kanye so much it probably freaks him out, especially this last date, to get on something, the album of the moment. The stuff is priceless. You can't put a price tag on that. I felt invigorated by it. I've still got my fastball.
Nice. Yeah, so I mean, I guess the general questions, I just want to kind of feel it, because I did read some reviews on before this episode on this song. And do you think it's like aged the worst out of all the songs on this one based on like the content? I mean, Chris Rock is Chris Rock. But I just remember like when I first heard this album, like, oh, they got Chris Rock on this. That's kind of cool. Do you think this song is kind of aged the worst out of all the tracks on this album?
I mean, aged in what way?
Like in terms of like, I don't know. Well, what I saw was just kind of like the toxic relationship, the general misogyny, like the way he's talking about it. I know it's more or less like a breakup song, and it's he's trying to capture what he's going through. And I mean, it's about 11 years ago.
I think Kanye West is like South Park. It's like you can say whatever he wants, and we don't. It's just the struggle of Kanye West. It's like that's why Anise can make excuses for him all day. It's the struggle of Kanye West. You're just getting inside this guy's mind. He's an artist, man, and no, I mean, sure, there's gonna be misogynistic stuff, and I don't know. I feel like it's just Kanye. People don't hold it against him. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think Kanye's going to get canceled? I mean, he's so outlandish that...
Well, if we start canceling people for stuff they said in songs, we're never going to stop.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, there's some pretty brutal rap songs that you could find out there.
Or rock songs, like all the like that, again, the hair metal in the 80s, that was all misogynistic about just using women. Or back in the 70s, they were actually doing that stuff with like 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, like taking them on planes and traffic. Like, if you start getting into the world of rock and just music in general, it's pretty gross. So
yeah, we're gonna start canceling Led Zeppelin because of things happened 40 years ago, 50 years ago. I think you're right, Ryan. I don't think Kanye will ever get canceled because he's, I mean, already, like, you can't cancel him. He's too big.
Uncancelable.
He's uncancelable. That's a good way of putting it. So I kind of just had that as a note. I mean, just leading us into like a track you skip. I was like, maybe this, but listening to it this week, I was like, it's the album. It's like, I mean, when you're in a bad relationship with somebody and you want to end it, you're going to think and say things that other people aren't going to find cool. Like, that's just the way these emotions work. Yeah. So that's kind of how I looked at that song and still do.
That's the thing. You can't like, if you're going to have vulnerable lyrics and you're going to put your heart and your like self on the line, and then if you're going to turn on and cancel someone for being, I don't know.
Yeah, because
that's the whole point of art. The whole point of art is to get that emotion out, even if it is raw and unfiltered. If you're going to start filtering your voice, then you're really your voice.
Yeah. You like, what really makes what makes you connect with an artist is when it's honest. You know, when it's not honest, when there's some sort of a filter, it comes across as fake. So do we want? Like, we don't want to force everybody to be fake, so all we get is fakery. Like, because we have struggles too, and you got to be vulnerable to put your struggles out there. I mean, that's more real. That's more real. We need more real.
Well, we definitely wouldn't have Kim by Eminem if couldn't do that. So, I mean, is there a song that you guys skip if there is one? I mean, it's.
No. Like for Kanye, it's obviously like he has so much music that not like I listen to this album every time I listen to a song on the album. Like obviously there's songs I pick out, like the songs I mentioned, like Devil in a Blue Dress and Hell of a Night and Power and stuff. I'll throw those on like Power, especially like on every mix I've made for the gym I think I've ever made. But no, there isn't really a song I skip, because if I'm gonna listen to this album, I'm ready to take that journey. It is a longer album. It's over an hour, I believe, but it's sort of worth it. Like the songs that are longer, they are complex and they change enough that it kind of keeps your attention. No two songs are really redundant of each other. Everything is pretty unique and different. And he's kind of mixing a whole bunch of genres. You get electro, you get rock, you get hip hop, you get pop, you kind of get everything with this. So there's no reason to skip a track unless, I don't know. There's nothing I particularly dislike, but. Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys skip any tracks? Like Ryan, do you skip anything, Ryan?
I sometimes so appalled to kind of skip sometimes. I don't know, it's just fucking ridiculous. It's too much. It's just too much. Well, it's not too much. I like it, but sometimes it's just like, I just want to move on.
I know what you mean.
I get it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like so appalled. Like I love Jay-Z, I love Pusha T, I love RZA, I love Sci-Hi's good. But I don't know, that song, I feel like with those rappers, it could have been better. Maybe it's the beat is kind of cool. It kind of gives you like a mob movie feel, like a
but they hold it. Yeah, it just gets held there in the mob feeling like.
Yeah, because they're not really barring. Like normally when you get a song with this many rappers on it, you're expecting to be like barred to death. Whereas with this, it almost feels like they're all sitting around a large table, drinking alcohol in their suits and just sort of like toasting each other and talking about what they're appalled about. And something weird I did not even know was a thing, but apparently because of Jay-Z's line about MC Hammer and going broke, MC Hammer started like a beef with Jay-Z. And I guess he wrote like a diss song and everything, and I'm like, what?
Is it MC Hammer diss song of Jay-Z because of this? Oh, this is
yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty solid. It's a pretty solid burn that Jay-Z lays on him, though. But that's too funny. I guess everybody's just trying to cash in a little bit if they can.
All just facts. Yeah. So the line is Hammer went broke, so you know I'm more focused. I lost 30 mil, so I spent another 30. Because unlike Hammer, 30 million can't hurt me.
Yeah, that's a pretty legendary story. The one thing I know what you mean about, like, maybe it is a bit long, that song, but the one thing is like RZA's at the end, and just the way he's like fucking ridiculous. Like, I love it. I gotta hear it. Like, maybe I'll skip ahead to the last minute, but like I don't know, that's
true.
I know there's enough moments in it. Like, I love Pusha T. Like, Pusha T comes in, you're like, oh, he's rapping about coke again, but it's still like solid bars, you know. And even Sci-Hi, because Sci-Hi is, I don't know if you guys know who Sci-Hi the Prince is, but he's pretty much like Kanye's main like co-songwriter. So he's the one who's like credited with, because I think he like credited with writing a whole bunch of his hits and stuff. So it's good that he's actually gets a feature and he's actually on the album himself. which is nice to hear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
his verses are probably the best too, in my opinion.
Yeah. Does he still work with Rhymefest? I know they had a feud about like the charity or the foundation that he had.
I don't think so, because there was that whole the controversy with the Donda that he was supposed to run it, but he wasn't running it. I'm not sure what happened there, but I'm not sure they work together anymore at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's too bad. Brand new. All right, so I guess any songs that you want to talk about that we might have missed before we move on?
Yeah,
I think we talked about every song. Dark Fantasy. We never talked about Dark Fantasy. The opener. So I'll tell the story about the first time I heard this album because Gordon was there. Gordon was coming to pick me up we're going out somewhere, and if anyone knows Gordon, they'll know that Gordon was late. So as I'm waiting for Gordon, I'm sitting on my computer and I'm like, I used to go to, because this was like the era of, especially like 20, like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like that whole era for me at least was, I was constantly online downloading whatever was a new flavor of the week. And so I had like a couple of music blogs I went to, and I just went to go check one before Gordon came, and boom, there it was. Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. So I quickly downloaded it, burned it onto a CD, and I think right when it was like finished burning, I got a text from Gordon saying, "Here." I run in, I'm like, listen to this. I put it in, he's like, "What is it?" I'm like, "Guess." And I had no idea what was going to happen, because I think I just kind of clicked the first song, heard the Nicki Minaj intro, and was like, okay, sounds like a burn, okay. And Gordon, I remember he's like, "Is it Lupe Fiasco?"
I was a big Lupe fan at the time.
No, yeah. And then like the second like he came in, like when Kanye West came in, he's like, "Oh shit, it's Kanye." I was like, "Yeah, man, like it just leaked." Like that Nicki Minaj intro, and then "Can I get Mataya?" Like I can listen to Justin Vernon and Teyana Taylor go back and forth forever, which they do at the end of the song pretty much. But it's such and like just Kanye West, the way he attacks that first beat is just phenomenal. It's such a great song, and it's probably the only like straight up like hip hop song, like straight up like rap song on the album where it isn't really like, you don't get a lot of EDM on it, you don't get a lot of like guitar stuff on it. It's just sort of like a straight beat, more of a classic hip hop beat, and just him barring us. But yeah, it's just a great opener.
Yeah, that's funny that you remember that like the whole story. That's pretty much everything that happened. I thought it was Lupe because I'm like, I was a big Lupe fan. I'm like, I'm waiting for like I think it was his third album, like LUPN or whatever that he was supposed to release, and I don't know if that ever came out or not. But like, I was waiting for it. I'm like, this is it, and then it was even crazier because it was Kanye.
Yeah, because like at that time too, because after 808s and Heartbreak, people were like, "Oh, you tried something different. What is he gonna do next?" Like, and then the Taylor Swift thing happened, and then he was like exiled, and then when it hits you, and that's the opening track, you're like, "Oh shit!" Like, Kanye West is back.
Yeah, I find he's often got like thinking prior to this album, like I think Good Morning from Graduation, where it's like kind of like a similar kind of thing where it's not like crazy aggressive, it's just to get you warmed up, got some decent rhymes, and then you move on with the album. But like, and then even when you had like the guy who always did the intro tracks before, I always forget his name. Was it like Cedric the Entertainer that did it?
It's not him, but it sounds like him. But I think the guy who does that voice, I think he passed away recently, actually. But you can keep going. I'll look it up.
Yeah. So yeah, you always kind of have those intros, like where he's making fun of Kanye in class and stuff like that, and all of a sudden it's like up a level where it's like, who's this British chick that's like singing or like repeating a nursery rhyme or something like that? And it turns out it's actually Roald Dahl's Cinderella. It's a poem that Nicki Minaj is doing. But yeah, so it warms you up in the same way like that, like almost like Graduation does. I'll just throw this out there. Do you guys find that this album is kind of like a culmination of the prior works that he did? Like, do you think he mixes everything together and makes something new out of it? Like he uses all the elements of the prior 4 albums?
Kind of, but the only real like EDM he really played with was on 808s, and that was more like a slow tempo, whereas this is more like bombastic. You can almost hear that this was the era where he was hanging out with, this came out of like him hanging out with like Daft Punk and that whole French house boom of like that era as well. It just seems like it was much akin to that sort of way of recording and working and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, like you hear like some of the stuff from his earlier. I don't know. It seems different though. But yeah, I know what you mean. It is sort of a culmination, but there's something about it. It's almost like there's an album missing in there to come out before this. It's kind of like I forget what other band I was saying this about, where it always feels like there's an album missing in between releases because there was such a big jump. Because like from College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation, they're all unique in their own way, but there wasn't that big of a jump musically. Whereas with 808s, we got a completely different thing. And then My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was almost like that injected into his old stuff, but it had a different sort of energy, and everything seemed more aggressive, more harsh. It was a lot darker themes to songs. It seemed dark. I guess that's why it's called My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, but it did sound dark and twisted. Like even just Nicki Minaj opening it up with her like crazy voices, and again on Monster, her crazy like vocals, and Kanye West like on Gorgeous is all distorted. You don't really hear him as well, him and Raekwon and stuff. It just seemed like a different energy was coming towards this album than the previous ones. So yes, it is sort of a culmination, but it also at the same time still stands out a little more than, at least to me, than everything else he's done sort of to that point.
So on the flip side, I'll ask real quick. On the flip side of that, when you, after listening to this album, the amount that you have, and I don't know what you did for Kanye this week, but when you go back and listen to those first 3 or even 4, are they like, do they sound different or lesser? Like,
they don't sound lesser, but when I go back and listen to the College Dropout, it seems like I still love that album, and I can pretty much rap that thing from top to bottom. But there's something that's more like independent sounding almost about that first album. It's a lot more, doesn't sound as expensive. And whereas you get to like Late Registration, Graduation, you have a lot more of like the big singles that he was more known for. Yeah. And whereas with this, this is like, it's that to the times 10. Like, you know, like with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, those singles just became bigger. The production sounds crazier. It sounds more like a lot more time and effort had gone into every decision that was made that went into this album.
That seems to be, maybe if there is one overarching theme, it seems like a lot more time and effort was put into all of this. It seems like like maybe the process of recording this really influenced the sound of it. I don't know. There's a lot of stories about it.
Yeah, because like especially like at the beginning, it was almost became a joke. Like the Kanye West way of production is like, oh, find an old soul sample, fuck with it a bit, loop it, put a beat over top, rap over it. It almost became a formula, especially for songs he was doing for other people. His stuff was always, you can tell he was working with like John Brion and different people for his stuff. But when this album came out, it was just so collaborative. Like he was working with so many different people. You had so many different voices being heard on it, plus all the new sort of things and tricks that Kanye had learned through his previous albums. And it's just, I don't know. It was a good culmination. Sorry, Ryan, what were you gonna say?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, like that formula of him producing, because I think Otis was the song that came out after, like right after this album, and I remember thinking, we're just back. Oh, okay, the craziness is over. That was my impression. I kind of felt like he was going back.
But little did you know it got crazier.
I know. The rest of the album is not like that.
Or even just Yeezus got like crazy.
Oh yeah.
Which I know a lot of people hate that album, but I think it's great. That tour was great too.
Yeah, I love that album. Plus, I mean, just add on what you guys are saying. I think his like the features that are on this album, like they got to be pound for pound the best features he's probably ever had across like all 9 or 10 albums that he has. Also, like it's like he's getting like Rihanna, then he's getting like, I'm surprised Beyonce's not on this, but he's got Jay-Z on too. He's got Wu-Tang, who notoriously don't like working with other people.
Hey, is Fergie on this somewhere? I think
no.
I think just maybe like writing credits. I did see her name, but I don't know if like what. It might be because I think she was a writer before, right? So she might have writing credits. I can double check.
For some reason I think she was somewhere tucked away on this album, but Anise, you say no, and
maybe I just missed it. I didn't think she was. I don't think I've ever heard that.
She like sings one letter.
But something I was gonna say about the features. With the features, it doesn't feel like sometimes when you hear an artist on a song, it feels like it's almost they're on there to promote themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of this sounds like they're on the song to make the song better, or the song is like it requires them. Like the features are so well chosen and placed and used. Another album I remember that being like a factor in where it was sort of the same idea was Travis Scott's Astro World, which I think shares a lot in common with this record in a weird way. But yeah, it's not. Sometimes when you hear features, it's almost like, oh, this is a new artist out right now. Let's get them on a track so we get all the kids to listen to it. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is a legend. Let's get the legend on the track so we have some legitimacy to this album. This isn't like that. This is like RZA was a part of this. Pusha T was a part of this. It isn't like they're features. They're literally a part of the album.
Yeah, they're all there, and they're there to service the album. Like they want to they're there to make it an amazing thing or whatever, or make it really good.
Yeah.
It's not about, make sure you put Alicia Keys in brackets at the end of this. It's not about
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you got guys like Q-Tip. I think he's only producer though. But yeah, I double checked. Fergie provides additional vocals on all of the lights. She's one of the 11 on that track.
She's on there too.
Everyone's on there.
Who else is on there? Is Lance Bass on there?
No.
Is Joey Fatone on there?
Rihanna, Kid Cudi, Tony Williams, The Dream, Charlie Wilson, John Legend, Ellie Jackson of LaRue, Alicia Keys, Elton John, Fergie, Ryan Leslie, Drake, Alvin Fields, and Ken Lewis.
Oh my God, that should be the most expensive song ever. Like if you were, imagine to do a live show with all the original contributors. Oh my God.
That'd be crazy.
That'd be so expensive.
Funny. So I guess this can. Oh yeah. Any other song questions or songs that you guys want to talk about?
I think we've covered every single one.
All right. So this can move us on to the artwork. So for the artwork, as you can see over Anissa's shoulder there, it was George Kondo who did the drawings. He did, I think, somewhere between 8 and 9 paintings for the album, and most of them are inserted.
I'll grab them.
Wanted. You have the inserts there. So apparently he mentioned this, that Kanye West wanted to have an album cover where it would automatically it would be banned as a publicity stunt. So I don't know if it's the one that you're going to show there.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Blurred. Well, so you can see it on Wikipedia. It's not really blurred on Wikipedia, but so apparently that was more like a publicity stunt. Like on Twitter, he was like calling out Walmart or something, and Walmart's like, "We want your album. Like, we want it on our shelf. So you haven't presented us even with the cover, so we don't even know what you're talking about." So it's just kind of just generated publicity to get things going. And then I guess the most important way that he generated publicity, of course, was his Good Friday releases, which was every Friday leading up to it, he would release tracks from his Good Music label, which included like all the artists that are on it. I think 4 tracks from this album as well.
That was quite possibly like the greatest summer of music. Like waking up every Friday knowing that it was the weekend and there was a new song from Kanye West ready to be like pumped was like the most amazing thing in the world at the time. And it's something that I'm shocked that like no one else has tried to do. Kanye West tried to do it again, I guess in 2016, and tried to do a similar thing in I think it was 2019 with all those albums he produced in, I'm blanking on the city, but wherever he produced, like all those albums came out in a row. Pusha T,
in Wyoming.
Yeah, the Wyoming stuff.
Yeah.
He kind of did a similar thing then, which I thought was a cool thing, but I know a lot of people hated those albums for whatever reason. But it was a very smart like marketing tactic because he was the hottest artist at the time and he was giving you a new song every week with, Rick Ross, Jay-Z, Pusha T, like a bunch of big artists.
Didn't he do one with Bieber, or he just remixed the Bieber?
Yeah, that's actually one of the best ones. It's not on anything, I don't think. Oh, I think it's on Spotify, but it's the Runaway Love remix. It's Raekwon and Justin Bieber. Such a good song.
Yeah, I remember that. You played that one for me. That was the 3rd release that came out on August 30th, 2010.
Yeah.
Which was actually a Monday. It was delayed.
Yeah, that was another thing too, because when this album, like, you can hear like different versions of songs. I think there's versions like not with missing features and different production stuff, which he took to another level with Life of Pablo, where he was literally re-releasing the album every few days with different mixes of songs.
That's crazy. Okay, so this was a hard question. We'll get it out of the way. I don't know if mine can change all the time. But where do you rank this album in the band's discography? For me, it was tough for me to rank it because it's like there's like 4 albums that I don't know how to rank. So I did make a ranking, but I think if we do another Kanye album, it could be different. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who wants to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I can go first.
All right, go for it.
Okay, so at the top, I put My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, just because I think I just think it's just like an elevation of everything. Like, I don't know. I think it's like the pinnacle of
Yeah.
It's the bee's knees.
Of music.
And second, I put The College Dropout. This was like, it could go either or with number one, because this album has like, I don't know, I feel so connected to it, because it was like, it's almost like a vindication, because it was something I was championing for so long, and then see what he became. You know what I mean? Like, I almost felt like I was a part of his success because of that. Because you know what I mean? Like, I talked about it in the Foo Fighters episode. Foo Fighters, I almost feel like I have money in the game because I was on them on the first album. Whereas this, I feel like I jumped the draft and drafted someone in the first round who was supposed to go in the third, and he turned out to be fucking Michael Jordan, you know? Like, that's what it feels like to me. He's one of my babies.
You got Tom Brady.
Yeah, so I go My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, then I went College Registration, then I went College Dropout, then Late Registration, then I went Yeezus. I know a lot of people don't like this album because it's like more like electro and EDM and not really rap, but I love it. I played it so much. I saw him on this tour. It was fantastic. Then I put Graduation because I don't know. I like Graduation too. I guess this could have been anywhere in the top, could have been 3, 4, 5, whatever. Then I put Life of Pablo, 808s, Jesus is King, and then Yay. I do like Yay probably more than like the average person, because I know a lot of people also dislike that album as well for whatever reason, but I feel like it's just a Kanye West album without those big singles that you're expecting, but it's no different than stuff he was, I don't know. I feel people hate on it for no real reason. And same thing goes for Jesus is King. I think Jesus is King is a great album. Like, there's a lot of good songs on that. So I really don't understand the hate on those two. It's funny because they get hate and people talk about how Kanye West has fallen off, but they all do really well with streaming. So people are full of shit.
Yeah, the listens tell the real story, I guess. But yeah, I was only really into 3 albums, so I'll just rank them. This one is my favorite. This is where it all started for me. And then I kept following. I don't know if you count Watch the Throne, because it's like it's a collaborative thing, but whatever, all this shit's collaborative. I got into that after, and just like how aggressive a lot of the tracks were. And Late Registration, that I put that as my number 3. I love Touch the Sky. I love those singles, good stuff. Lupe Fiasco, that's how I learned about Lupe. So yeah.
That's the thing. If we start including like collaborative, like Watch the Throne would probably be up there too. And then even Kids See Ghosts, like that Kids See Ghosts album he did with Kid Cudi, I think is amazing. Like, I think everyone should listen to that. There's a lot of good tracks.
Yeah, it's really good. Like those Wyoming sessions, like, do you think they just get flat because they're all like so short, the albums? Like, they're all about 30 minutes?
Maybe, but I really like, I understand Tiana Taylor's complaint, because for her, she was waiting for so long to release a second album. Then I guess like one got scrapped, and then it ended up being part of this whole weird rollout, which I don't know, the amount of attention that Tiana Taylor was getting at the top when she first came out, it seemed like they kind of good music sort of dropped the ball with her, and that's sort of like when shit hit the fan. And I know the Nas album, you hear Nas and Kanye West working together, you want it to be more effort put into it than like the very little time that was put into it. And then even like Pusha T, but I think the Pusha T one was the best out of all those releases.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. Yeah, Daytona's really good.
Yeah, but I didn't think any of them were necessarily bad. I kind of felt bad for Tiana Taylor because it felt like she should have been bigger, because especially like her first album did well, and then she was like in the video for Fade, which was huge.
Mm-hmm.
She's on this album. She was on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fan. You know what I mean? Like, it seemed like there was hype, and it just sort of like dwindled off for her, and having her second album released like that almost seemed like a slap in the face. But other than that, I thought the releases were all good.
Yeah.
Nothing amazing.
I liked Kids See Ghosts a lot. I listened to it this week. So I guess, yeah, real quick, my ranking would be My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, number one. Number two, I put College Dropout. I was like debating because like for me, it's like College Dropout, Late Registration. How should I put those? So I put College Dropout number two. And then number three, I didn't even put Late Registration. I put Yeezus. I listened to it this morning and I bumped Yeezus up and I bumped Late Registration down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that album, Yeezus is like really good. I like that album. Even though it's like 40 minutes, I wish it was longer, but every track is like 10 minutes of just awesome. Like it's fucking amazing. So I think it's justified being number three. Late Registration's number four. Graduation's number five. Life of Pablo, which I mentioned earlier that I haven't listened to it a whole lot. I really enjoyed it more this week. I would say I probably listened to the album like maybe 4 or 5 times since it's been out.
No More Parties in LA is probably like top 5 Kanye West for me. I listen to that song all the time.
Yeah, that's a really good song. And then there's some other like if you want to talk about like toxic relationship, like 30 Hours and like things like that, you could really go down that rabbit hole there. And then I put 808s and Heartbreak. I know that album should probably be higher on my list, but I just don't listen to it as much as it's more, I would say it's probably more influential than I put my ranking in terms of just being honest and how often I listen to it. It's a great album. I did listen to it this week for sure. But it's not like a go-to Kanye West album.
One thing I will say about 808s is that's an album that I sort of, like 2 years ago, it's almost like I rediscovered it. Because that was sort of like the Kanye West album I sort of ignored because when it sort of came out. But then when I started hearing all like the babies that it produced, I was like, oh, let's go back and listen to like what kind of started this whole thing. I know it was like very Kid Cudi influence on the album, but it's actually really good. And I was listening to Welcome to Heartbreak just a lot that year.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like I was going through a breakup, even though I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where it like I think it's probably got like 10 tracks, but like all the songs on it. Like like you got Paranoid, you got Heartbreak, Amazing, RoboCop, like everything almost seems like a banger, even if it's not a single. So it's a great album. It's one of those albums I probably revisit like every 3 or 4 years. I give it a little more time. And then Ye and Jesus is King in that order. Jesus is King, I listened to it for the first time this week. Solid beats. I can see myself revisiting it. I don't know when. And then Ye is I thought a really great album. Opening track is hilarious. Well, not hilarious, but it's pretty great with where he's talking about murdering somebody. But yeah, no, it's great stuff. Do you think people have kind of fallen off Kanye, like in terms of at a certain point, like when this album comes out, then you have Yeezus, and then you have Watch the Throne, of course. And then it seems like other than Life of Pablo, which kind of got delayed, it kicked down the road a little bit. Do you think that people like me, it took me longer to find these albums, or what, do you think there was a reason for that, or do you think I was just like a one-off?
Well, I think the main reason is that it's like he's so far off now from his first album that it's hard to keep that momentum and hype for that long. Like considering like what his first like 6-7 albums were highly like hyped, like they were just huge deals. Where the last couple weren't, like he didn't have any big singles. It didn't seem like it's really about that. He's just sort of putting out music for the sake of, because people want it. You know what I mean? Like that's why he's kind of doing it. And I also feel like people who say they miss the old Kanye, because that's like a common thing people always say, like, well, I miss the old Kanye. I think the people who say that haven't actually listened to Ye, Jesus is King, or Kids See Ghosts. Because if you were listening to those 3 albums, all 3 are very different and all 3 are solid. Like obviously they're not My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy or Late Registration or College Dropout, but again, he's like 9 albums in at this point. That's not even including like collaborative albums, other singles, Good Fridays, like Theraflu, Cold. Like he has all these other Click, like he has all these songs. So he's provided us with so much good music to turn around now and be like, oh, this stuff isn't as amazing as those, those like huge albums, huge singles you had. You're not being able to reproduce this in your 40s. It's like, well, yeah, no shit.
Yeah. Well, do you think the other thing is like, it seems like there's been a noticeable drop off, like in the radio play? Like, what was the last big Kanye West song that you remember hearing on the radio? Like,
that's what I'm saying.
I was thinking of Paul McCartney.
Yeah, but that's because, like, I was gonna say, because he, like I said, he doesn't really have singles. Like, what was the single off of Jesus is King? What's the single off of Ye? But then you hear this stuff, but then like you hear people say, "Oh, Kanye West has lost it. He can't write a banger anymore." But then WAP by what's her name?
Yeah.
What's her face?
Oh,
WAP,
yeah,
uh,
the
Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B.
Cardi B. Yeah.
That song,
Cardi B.
the beat is pretty much just all mine from the Ye album.
Mm-hmm.
Yet people turn around and say, "Oh, I don't like Ye album," but then the biggest song from last year was pretty much sampling the Ye, a
Yeah.
song from that out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's where you raise the question: did you actually put time into listening to these albums, or did you see that it was called Ye and the album said I'm bipolar or whatever the cover says, and you just judged it, or you heard that it was recorded in like a month and you judged it, and then Jesus is King comes out. Did you not listen to it because it was called Jesus is King and he was running for president? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many other factors that go into being a Kanye West fan now that I feel like a lot of people just don't want to put in the work and just say, "Oh, he's lost it."
Yeah, there is definitely a narrative in pop culture about him, obviously.
Yeah.
So everybody's talking about him and stuff. So Gordon, is interesting though. You said Jesus is King, great solid beats. How's his lyrical content in Jesus is King? Are you noticing a difference?
From what I remember, I don't think he does a whole lot of rapping. I think it's more choir and like more singing. So that's where I kind of fell back on the beats. I don't I only listened to it once, and I'm just trying to think. I don't remember any verses on it or anything like that. I think it was more just kind of a straight up Christian R&B album.
Like follow.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Like Follow God is pretty much just like a straight up classic Kanye West song. Like, I don't see it as anything that far removed from the first three albums. That's where it comes in, where it's like people like Ryan, he's about to say something, but he hasn't heard the album. So that's what I'm saying. I feel like a lot of people are in that boat though. They just say, "Oh, I miss the old Kanye."
Listen,
they ignore the new, like they don't put the time in. They just, "Oh, he's a Christian rapper now. I don't want to listen to it."
Well, dude, man, like the song's called "Follow God." Like, why? I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but you're starting with that. So it's
yeah, but
like,
here's counter argument. His breakout song was called "Jesus Walks."
Okay, fair enough. But I mean, I wasn't there for the breakout song, so.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, everybody brings their own perspective on it, so I think that's fair.
No, I'm saying, like, yeah, you can not listen to it because of whatever he's singing about God, but I feel like using that is almost like a cop out because he's not rapping about. He's only rapping about God a little bit more than he was before. Like, he still has songs where he's just rapping about the same old shit.
I don't know, man. He started a church. I think it might be a big deal, like the God thing. I don't think you can just, like, sweep it under the rug.
But again, Ryan, like, what I'm saying is the biggest problem right now with people saying this. Listen to it before you say, "Oh, he's lost it."
Agreed. But I will say this, like, college dropout, you could relate to that person, right? You could relate to the content. You could relate to the vibe. Jesus is King is harder for me to relate to as on the surface. Maybe if I listen to it, I could relate to some of the details. But on its surface, I'm not following God here.
But at the same time, when an artist is like 20 years in, over 10 albums of content, does he really have to work hard for you to know who he is and for you to relate with him? You already know who Kanye West is. No, he's a person now. He's a character, and it's a story. So
I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about his art here. Like,
yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. But at this point, he's not new. He's not trying to make something to relate with the audience. He is big. He's not going to be able to relate with you. He's a billionaire. He's one of the most successful artists of all time. And if that's why you can't relate to him, then
there's plenty of churchgoers who can relate to him. That's fine.
If that's what you're going to look at and be like, "Oh, it's a Christian album. I'm not going to listen to it." Okay.
I'm not. Sure. I don't know. I haven't. No, I'm not. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying it says that the song's called "Follow God," so there's a clue. And you tell me what the content is.
But I'm saying, like, Follow God. People are going to say, "I'm not going to listen to Follow God because it's called Follow God." But one of his biggest songs ever is called "Jesus Walks." So to me,
I don't listen to that song either.
But you're not his average fan. So what I'm saying is that you can't use that as a reason when his biggest song was, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't. I don't understand the argument there. Like,
well, because
if you're falling off, like, he was always a Christian artist singing and he would always have songs about God. So to turn around and be like, I don't like him now because he made a 8-song album called Jesus is King. Like, I don't know. It's just,
Dude, he turned the dial up. I think that's the thing here. He definitely turned the Christian dial up, made it more overt, made it the point of everything, and that's just kind of a turnoff for a lot of people. And maybe even I would suspect some of those people who are cool with Jesus Walks. And they're like, okay, that's cool, whatever. There's a lot of cool other songs. But when you drop a whole album about it, you're like, I can only just, accept and say, oh, it's just Kanye so much.
but are you really going to ignore his music? Because even if the music is still good, if you don't like the lyrical content, does it really matter?
It's interesting. This is like this is a deep debate that we could do
I know.
episode about. I would love to because how much
But-
if
and you can
Hitler
kinda-
released an album and it was amazing, could you play it? Like, yeah.
No, but it's like the whole idea of, yeah, you're gonna sit here and be like, oh, I don't like this guy because the song is called Follow God, but then Pussy and Religion is All I Need. Or you're like, you got songs about like, obviously like toxic masculinity and like rape culture and stuff. People are cool with that, but then when he sings about God, my record won't get played.
Maybe
Anyways.
maybe here's
You had the whole song about it. It was a big hit. You had the whole
I
song about this argument. It was a big hit.
maybe
I think something else. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was just gonna say that maybe Kanye West is just kind of at his best when he's kind of jumbled up and struggling, but when he's settling on, okay, I figured it out, it's Jesus. Well, I was there for all the struggle and all that. So.
Yeah, but it's Jesus now. I'm sure that, especially now he's like divorced. I'm sure if he drops an album now, it's gonna probably be different.
Oh yeah, we'll have to see.
Or who knows?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to, I don't know, Yandi or Donda, whatever album he finally releases.
But the thing is, like, he released that other song. What was it with Lil Pump?
I did hear that on the radio, actually.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, he's singing Jesus is King, but he's still making these like disgusting sexual songs or whatever he does.
I think the other thing is too, though, from what I remember of Jesus is King, it is like a PG album. Like, he's not swearing in it. He's keeping it like very PG. So I don't know. That might also be a factor. Like, not even you want the old Kanye. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. To each their own. But I feel like a lot of people, like I was saying, a lot of people are just, yeah, they'll be like, oh, I miss the old Kanye. But yeah, it's not just Jesus is King. There's also Ye and there's also Kids See Ghosts. So it's not like, again, even if you say I don't like Jesus, I'm gonna ignore Jesus is King because it's about Jesus. And like, this is coming from a Muslim guy. I still don't mind that album. But like, Ye and especially Kids See Ghosts, Kids See Ghosts is like an amazing album. I don't know why people looked over it. Like, it's bizarre to me. Like, it's so good. It has Kid Cudi. Like, everyone loved Kid Cudi. Everyone loved Kanye West. Everyone wanted them to make a record together. They finally do, and it gets ignored. It's just bizarre. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think it's just like the length, and maybe because there was no official singles, that kind of like, I don't know, has to find its audience that way, as opposed to just being like, you want to hear amazing music, it's just on the radio for free.
Yeah.
And I also think you were saying, like, he has a bunch of different songs in his like top songs. Like, there's a song from Ye. So obviously they're still getting a lot of plays. Like, people are still listening to this stuff. It's just not maybe getting talked about because he's kind of reached that point now where he has his fans. He's not dropping singles. The only thing he's in the news now for is like running for president and saying controversial things and whatnot. So
it's true. Is that those aspects of Kanye West were definitely bigger news than his album.
Yeah.
Just like, so I could see that he's just like a character. He's just like going to do whatever he wants now. He doesn't have to. Well, I don't know. I can't. I'm not going to pretend to understand Kanye West's mind.
True.
Other than the fact that he loves fish sticks.
So nice. But the okay, I guess this leads us perfectly to. I'll jump a question. We can get back to it. But what is Kanye West's place in history? I have seen, maybe to make the question more specific, I have seen in many different places that a lot of people consider him the greatest entertainer of the 21st century. Do you agree with that, or where are your thoughts on his place in history?
That's huge to say that.
Of the 21st century, it is huge, but is it wrong?
I mean, it's a young century, so maybe, I guess.
Yeah, the only one that really gives him a run for his money is Drake. Whereas
Yeah.
I think, but the only difference is with Kanye and Drake, it might be just a personal thing, but like Kanye West's music always seemed a little more elevated than Drake's to me. Like it seemed like he was taking more risks, doing more things. Whereas Drake kind of settles more into his zone. Like he has like his R&B thing. His
Yeah.
hip hop stuff is more left to just songs here and there and like random singles and features and stuff. And Drake is also like a like a product of Kanye West in that he's what came out of like what Kanye West provided to music created someone like Drake.
That lane for
Yeah, you wouldn't have Drake without Kanye. Not that they're doing the same thing, but they're doing it in a similar way. And
yeah.
and
Drake
like
would have been more gangster if Kanye wasn't around.
I don't think that's true.
He'd still be in a
No.
wheelchair.
Not
But
exactly.
but no, it seems like you have artists like Drake now, you have Travis Scott now, you have I don't know whatever the kids are listening to, but it's a lot more artist driven. They're a lot more they want to see what they can do as opposed to just give me a beat with some bars,
Yeah.
which is still great. I love rappers that can do that, but Kanye West created like a new lane where it's like the production is in your hand. It's not just hip hop. You can mix in pop. You can mix in maybe a little bit of rock, some EDM. And create your own thing. So I think like he kind of like shook hip hop a bit, added to it, because hip hop like it's still like a newer genre, and he kind of like added his own flair to it.
Yeah,
Right.
this definitely seemed like a switch from when Kanye West showed up on the scene. Because like I remember before Kanye West, yeah, everything was so hard. It just seemed so harder. I don't know.
Well, because he kind of introduced to the mainstream that whole like more soulful stuff that like a Tribe Called Quest and stuff were doing in the '90s. He kind of made it more mainstream and added his own sort of ingredients to it to make it more him. But yeah,
Yeah, and on another album, maybe we'll talk about one day. I mean, him and 50 Cent pretty much he ended like G Unit or like their dominance right with that album. So to answer the question, I will agree that he is probably the greatest entertainer of the 21st century, simply because he's consistently released stuff for the last 16 years. Probably, well, you could argue 20 years, but he's consistently released stuff, and he's never really had a misstep. And we haven't even talked about like all his other endeavors, like fashion and all that other stuff, which he's thriving in. He probably makes most of his money from that stuff. But he, like, if you just look at his music, his discography, it's all like really good. Like we're arguing from 10s to like I would say like 8s out of 10. Like that's kind of like where he lives. And I don't think there's any other artist that's had like a 5 or 6 album run to kick off their career like him. Like normally, yeah, you get 1 or 2, maybe 3, and that artist is known for the next like 40 years. With Kanye, he's like his 2000 run and his 2010 run almost, or like those 5 or 6 releases are outstanding, and you can compare with any other band's discography.
Yeah, like he constantly reinvents himself. He kind of falls into that vein that we were talking about a few weeks ago, where like the whole Trent Reznor thing, or like Beck, or just artists like that who are they are always collaborating. They're always trying to like push music forward and still using the tools that they've gained throughout their musical career. So I don't know. I feel like he's an important figure, and the thing is, I still want to know what he's going to do next. Like he could drop an album next year, and it could be the most amazing thing in the world. And he's also an artist that he'll be planning albums, and they'll never come to fruition. And people make a lot of jokes about that, but you can find the leaked versions of those songs, and a lot of those songs are great. Like but it's what's stopping him from releasing it. Who knows? He doesn't think it's great. He doesn't think it's different enough. Who knows why he's not releasing it? But it still goes towards him caring. Like he's just not going to put out anything. Mm-hmm. Like he has full albums that he scraps. You know what I mean? Like he obviously is pretty particular of what he wants to release.
Yeah, he's very much involved. He's an artist, right?
Yeah.
I want to know what he's gonna do next, because I don't know what he's gonna say on Joe Rogan. I don't know what he's gonna do with the next album or whatever. So, yeah, who knows?
That's funny. Like even even in the fashion world, like last year he released his foam runner shoes, when he first released pictures, everyone made fun of it. Just Google it. It's like a crock. Everyone made fun of it. But then when people bought it, they were like, this is the most amazing shoe in the world. It's so fucking comfortable. It was like picked as the best new shoe of the year. Now it's coming out of it's like sold out. So it's like even his craziness turns out to be like, oh my God, he's not crazy. He's right.
Yeah. Yeah, he can still hit a miss.
Yeah.
So I guess the question I skipped before we ask the final question, is this Kanye's peak? And if not, can you identify where his peak is?
I feel like he was like one of the biggest artists in the world, if not the biggest at this time, or maybe like leading up, or maybe after it, like for a while. But so, and then maybe he's kind of dropped off. I don't know.
I think it is his peak, just because at this point it got to the point where it was like, okay, is Kanye West, like, is he going to disappear now, or is he going to just continue on forever? Because he had that first 3 run. He released 808s, which is kind of divisive. He had that whole MTV thing where it's like, okay, this guy's an asshole. Yeah. Like what's going to happen now? And then he releases this album, and universally loved, considered like an instant classic. So many big singles. Like, it's going to be talked about forever. I feel like at this point, like it's never going to go away. The songs still get played. And since then, he's been able to do whatever he wants. Like, the path to him becoming a billionaire, it seemed like it didn't start with that first album. It started with this era, because this was the era where everything started happening. This is when like he released like the Air Yeezys, and he was like playing everywhere. He had the huge tours, and everyone, I don't know, just he seemed like he was just so big, larger than life.
Well, I mean, the album itself gives that impression with all the people on it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, how can this not be the biggest album ever? Because everybody was involved in it. So it kind of gives it that vibe just from that fact alone.
Yeah. I mean, musically, I can understand. Yeah, I can see musically maybe this being his peak. It's hard because Watch the Throne was so good. I know it's a collaboration, so he gets like, I don't know, like half marks or half credit. But maybe he should get 2/3 credit, because I'm sure he's doing a lot of the beats. But yeah, so I don't know, because those 2 albums back to back are pretty good, and I really like Yeezus. So to me, like those 3 are amazing. But I mean, yeah, I think this is, maybe I'm starting to get into the essential question here. But I do think it's him at the height of his powers, when he's at like an absolute low, especially after that Taylor Swift thing, everything that he dealt with like over the 2 prior years of breaking up his engagement and his mom passing away, which led to everything that you heard on 808s and Heartbreak. But basically, he was able to get the people he wanted to work with, and he was just firing on all cylinders at the peak of his powers, and he just put together like an amazing album. It didn't falter, it didn't fail. It's not like, oh, that middle section of this album sucks. No, this whole album is amazing. So you have to give him top marks for that, and I don't think there's anybody else that can really do that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I think that kind of leads us into the question.
Yeah, so I mean, for all those reasons, I'll say it's essential. I'll call it his magnum opus, and yeah, I mean, it's just a great album. I don't know, how do you guys feel about it?
Yeah, it's an essential album. It's a journey, and I like it's not just a journey. It's a journey that's like got so many awesome bangers on it, like awesome hits. So it's not like, oh, it's a Tool and they're bringing you on a crazy thing and you got to be along for the ride. It's like you're gripped along for the ride. So if I wanted to give an album to somebody, I mean, I don't know his material that well, but this is so gripping. Why would you not give this one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to make a comparison to another great artist that we've experienced in our lives, Quentin Tarantino. So when Quentin Tarantino released his first few movies, he was like the hottest shit. Everyone loved him. Then he had the whole Grindhouse movie, which was sort of like a misstep, and people were like, "What's going on here?" Which you can kind of equate to 808s. He tried something different, and some people liked it, some people didn't like it. But then we got Inglourious Bastards, and it seemed like when Tarantino was making Inglourious Bastards, he knew he was making something truly amazing, and everyone involved also seemed like they were making something truly amazing. And Kanye West is like that with my Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. It seemed like when they were making this album, everyone knew that they were making something truly amazing, something truly different, and that everyone just put in 110%. And it sort of like changed our outlook of him in the future, like in the future after, like because of his previous stuff, Kanye West would have always been remembered and appreciated and respected. But it seems like because of this album and this sort of era of everything going on is what gave him that like legendary status, where he kind of cemented like, I can make good music forever if I really wanted, like if I want to make good music I can type thing. And he's sort of made his own pathway from there. And Tarantino has kind of done the same thing since Inglourious Bastards. Everything he's done, we're fully on board with now because we've seen him do all this other stuff that was amazing, that even if he's making a Christian album, we're still going to watch. We're still going to listen to it at least once.
That's true. Yeah, no, I like that comparison a lot. I actually kind of thought of it too. And I was like, the more I listen to this album and the more I see him working with people, I'm like, is he like Quentin Tarantino, but like almost on a Steven Spielberg scale? Like the projects?
But you can like, it's sort of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Some people watch it and say, oh, it's just people talking. It's boring. It's not as exciting as his early work, which is the same thing people get with Ye and Jesus is King. Oh, it's kind of solid and it's not as good or it's not as like memorable as his early work. But then other people are like, no, he's still firing on all cylinders. So it's like that whole it's like art. Everyone has a different opinion. Some people like to follow the artists and are just kind of into whatever they're doing, no matter what it is. They like to see them take risks. They like to see them fail. And I feel like that's where I am with Kanye West. Even if he releases a bad song, it's like, all right, what's next?
But with this album, it's hard to deny, for anybody to deny that, like just like what you're saying, it seems like everybody really cared, or like every moment was really cared about. Well,
there was like it was like a meme, and my buddy sent it to me, and it was like, if Biggie or Tupac were to come back today, what album would you play them? And I remember instantly I was just like, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Yeah. It's sort of like I was saying with Runaway, it's like what hip hop has become. Like it's become, and it's not that it became this, it's just that it's become anything.
Yeah, this kind of broke up. I mean, not just this album, but Kanye West really opened the door. Like you can do, hip hop can be much more than, just whatever was coming out in the 2000s.
Yeah, because like you had like rock and rap mixing, and you had electro and rap mixing, but this was like the first time that it was like taken seriously in a way.
Yeah. So going back to the Quentin Tarantino analogy, does that make Nicki Minaj Eli Roth for Kanye West? No, I'm just kidding. All right. So I mean, I don't have anything else to add. Did you guys have any final thoughts or anything else that we missed?
Yeah, just listen to this because it's an opus, and I don't know if it's the best hip hop album I've ever heard, but it might be.
From the last 10 years or 11 years, I guess, is it?
I mean, Ready to Die, that's pretty close. So those two there. Okay, maybe of the 21st century then.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, that's high acclaim. I guess so. I guess we'll leave it on that then. So yeah, thanks for joining us this week on the Essential Albums podcast. If you were watching, thanks for keeping up with us. And you like and subscribe, leave comments. We always like the feedback. And then if you're listening to this, you know where to find us on Anchor and Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts. What album are we doing next week? I always forget. I should look into
this.
I believe we're doing Fugees The Score.
Oh, nice.
Ooh. Okay.
This is a good summer lineup. I'm liking this.
Yeah. We're the next few weeks we're kind of leaning against going. We're not covering much rock the next month, I guess.
Yeah, switch it up a little bit.
Switching it up.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Join us next week. Original music by Ryan Dugal and artwork by Vincent Tran.
See y'all.
See you guys next week.